Yeah, no more. But other than that, like, I can't control that. But...
And lore. For those of you who don't know, the Histories and Lore are a Blu-ray exclusive where we dive into parts of our world that honestly we don't have time to cover in the show. What you're about to see is our most ambitious project yet. The Dance of Dragons, which we adapted from George R. R. Martin's novella, The Princess and the Queen. The piece details the great Targaryen civil war between Dany's ancestors and is narrated by some of our favorite fallen characters. Little Shireen Baratheon, Viserys Targaryen, King Robert, Lady Catelyn Stark, Joffrey, there we go, and Oberyn Martell, the Red Viper. At the end of season 1, you saw Dany hatch 3 dragons from stone eggs, the last dragons left in the world. Tonight, you get to find out what happened to the rest of them 100 years before A Game of Thrones. But first, please welcome to the stage a very special guest, Liam Cunningham, who plays Davos Seaward.
I've always wanted to say this. Hello, New York! The main reason I'm here from a personal point of view is that I wanted to thank each and every one of you for making this show what it is. And I mean that most sincerely. I was asked by a journalist not too long ago, did you know that this show was going to be huge? And I went, nobody knew it was going to be huge. We knew it was going to be good. We knew we were going to do our best to make it as good as it possibly could be. But each and every one of you guys have turned this thing into a phenomenon, and we thank you from the bottom of our hearts. We really hope you enjoy the DVD. So I hear you guys like dragons, is that right? Yeah! Cool, so do I. I don't get to see much of them. That's Daenerys and all that sort of stuff. So, without further ado, I got to read something here because I've forgotten what the hell I was going to say. We present to you the Dance of Dragons. And don't forget, stay seated, because there might be something a little after it that may amaze you. Enjoy!
Helaena entered the royal apartments with her daughter and 2 sons to put them to bed. Without warning, Blood and Cheese burst in, daggers in hand. They told her that a debt was owed. A son for a son. Blood and Cheese demanded she choose which son would be ripped from her forever. Queen Helaena pleaded with the men to kill her instead, but they refused. Weeping, Helaena named her younger son, Maelor. Perhaps she thought the boy was too young to understand. Perhaps because the older boy was King Aegon's firstborn son and heir. You hear that, little boy? She's whispered to the younger son. Your mama wants you dead. When the guards burst in, they found Queen Helaena still screaming, clasping her dead son's body to her, mad with grief. The blood of their children transformed a dynastic dispute into a war of...
And Rhaenyra had come for her throne, for the city was defenseless. Aemond had taken the king's army from the city, and worse, he'd taken his dragon, Vhagar. Seeing that resistance was hopeless, the small council surrendered the city, the Queen Mother Alicent, and the broken Queen Helaena. But not King Aegon. Somehow, despite his wounds and delirium, he had vanished from the city. And so Queen Rhaenyra climbed the steps and seated herself on the Iron Throne. Legend has it that as she left the hall later, blood trickled down her legs and hands, proving the Iron Throne had spurned her. Nonsense. It's a chair made of steel blades. Rhaenyra had wanted it all her life and had sacrificed 2 sons for it. She likely gripped the damn thing too tight.
When Aemond realized it was Arrax hunting Aemond in the Riverlands, she ordered the girl's head be sent to her. But there was a complication. When Daemon received the Queen's order, he proclaimed it a Queen's words. He sent the girl away at dawn, watching her and her dragon vanish into the morning mists. Then Daemon sent a challenge to his nephew Aemond and flew to Harrenhal, alone, to wait. 14 days later, a shadow blacker than any passing cloud swept over Harrenhal. Vhagar had come at last, and on her back rode one-eyed Prince Aemond. He mocked Daemon for facing him alone. "You have lived too long, uncle." And Daemon replied, "On that much, we agree." Then the old prince climbed stiffly onto the back of his dragon Caraxes, but neglected to fasten the chains that secured rider and Tucson. The sun was close to setting when, as one, the 2 dragons leapt into the sky. Daemon took Caraxes up swiftly until they disappeared into a bank of clouds. Vhagar, older and slow, ascended more gradually. Up and up Vhagar soared, searching for Caraxes. Sudden as a thunderbolt, a shrieking Caraxes dove upon Vhagar. Locked together, the dragons stumbled toward the lake. Caraxes' jaws closed about Vhagar's neck, but Vhagar raked open Caraxes' belly, and her teeth ripped off a wing. The lake rushed up with terrible speed. Then Daemon Targaryen, who had never fastened his riding chains, stood in his saddle. He leapt from his dragon to Aemond's, and in his hand was Dark Sister, the Valyrian sword of Aegon's sister queen, Visenya. As Aemond One Eye looked up in terror, Daemon ripped off his nephew's helm and drove the sword down into his one remaining eye. Half a heartbeat later, the dragons struck the lake, sending up a gouge of water so high that it was said to have been as tall as Harrenhal's great tower. The lake boiled with dragon blood, and then was still. Daemon Targaryen was 49 at his death. Prince Aemond had only turned 20. Vhagar, the greatest of the Targaryen dragons, had counted 181 years. Thus passed the last living creature from the days of Aegon's conquest. Lining the moat of Maelor's holdfast. That night, the city rose in riot against Rhaenyra, demanding justice for Queen Helaena and her murdered son, among other foolish peasant fantasies. In the midst of this chaos, a one-handed fool called the Shepherd began to rant against dragons. Not just the ones of the enemy, but all dragons everywhere. As he pointed to the dragon pit above on the hill, he shouted, "There the demons dwell, this is their city. If you would make it yours, first you must destroy them." The cry went up from 10,000 throats. "Kill them!" There were 4 dragons housed within the dragon pit that night. By the time the first of the attackers came pouring in, all 4 were roused, awake, and angry. Nobody knows how many men and women died that night. Who cares? They all should have. Trapped within the pit, the dragons could not fly. Instead, they fought with horns, claws, teeth, and fire. Finally, the last remaining dragon broke her chains, spread her wings, and flew straight up at the great dome, trying to flee. Already weakened by dragon flame, the dome cracked under the force of impact, and then tumbled down, crushing dragon slayers and herself.
High atop the Red Keep, Queen Rhaenyra clutched her 2 remaining sons to her as she watched the end of her family's might, too afraid of the peasants to defend her dragons. At least her older son, Joffrey, had a man's spine. He stole his mother's dragon, Syrax, and tried to fly it to the dragon pit to save his birthright. The stupid beast didn't understand and twisted beneath him, fighting to be free of the little boy. Until it was. A queen is still a woman, with all the weakness of that sex. Weeping for her lost son more than her dragons, Rhaenyra abandoned the Iron Throne and sold her crown to buy passage for her and her last son back to Dragonstone. Rhaenyra hoped to hatch more dragons from the eggs in the castle. But when she landed, the welcoming party slew her guards and marched her and her son at spear point to the castle to face a dead man and a dying dragon. "Sister!" King Aegon, second of his name, called out to Rhaenyra. Rook's Rest had left Aegon bent and twisted, his once handsome face puffy from milk of the poppy, with burn scars covering half his body. Rhaenyra, ever defiant, told her dear brother that she'd hoped he was dead. "After you," Aegon answered. Then Sunfire bathed her in a blast of flame and devoured her in 6 bites while her son watched, leaving the 7th and final bite her lower leg for the stranger.
Rhaenyra was dead, and King Aegon sat the Iron Throne again. But only for half a year. He was poisoned by his own men and replaced with the very boy who had watched his mother devoured.
When Rhaenyra's last son wed Aegon's only daughter, the Dance of Dragons officially ended. Ash and burned men, all that was left of the Riverlands. 2 scared children spouting oaths they didn't understand, all that was left of the mighty House Targaryen. Ancient skulls and hatchlings that grow no bigger than cats, all that was left of the dragons.
Yay! Thankfully, with the rise of Daenerys Targaryen, that is no longer the case. Just look up.